We're going to read Ruth. We're going to read the whole of chapter 3. So if you're going to read it with me, you're welcome to. At the same time, if you just want to listen along, you're welcome to do that as well. Ruth 3 reads, "One day Ruth's mother-in-law Naomi said to her, 'My daughter, I must find a home for you where you will be well provided for.' Now Boaz, with whose women you have worked, is a relative of ours. Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know that you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do.' 'I will do whatever you say,' Ruth answered. So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. In the middle of the night, something startled the man. He turned, and there was a woman lying at his feet. 'Who are you?' he asked. 'I am your servant Ruth,' she said. 'Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family.' 'The Lord bless you, my daughter,' he replied. 'This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Although it is true that I am a guardian redeemer of our family, there is another who is more closely related than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to do his duty as your guardian redeemer, good. Let him redeem you. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until the morning.' So she lay at his feet until morning, but got up before anyone could be recognized. And he said, 'No one must know that a woman came here to the threshing floor.' He also said, 'Bring me the shawl you were wearing and hold it out.' When she did so, he poured into it 6 measures of barley and placed the bundle on her. Then he went back to town. When Ruth came to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, 'How did it go, my daughter?' When she told her everything Boaz had done for her and added, 'He gave me these 6 measures of barley, saying, don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed.' Then Naomi said, 'Wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens. For the man will not rest until the matter is settled today.'" This is the word of the Lord. You can have a seat. Before we get started, I want to simply say a birthday shout out to Lex, so you can say happy birthday. It's also Joe's birthday tomorrow, so give him a shout too. You put up the picture, Ian. Can you put up the picture there? Do y'all remember me talking about this guy at all? All right. So Saint Bessarion of Egypt was known for his incredible miracles. This guy was known for incredible stuff. He was a desert father of the 5th century who lived in the Nitrian desert, which was just outside of Alexandria, and was often described as the wonder worker. One popular story involves him walking by the Mediterranean Sea and being asked for water by his disciple. He prays and turns the salt water of the Mediterranean into a sweet, fresh drinking water. In another instance, while walking in the desert, one of his companions suddenly begins to suffer from dehydration. And kneeling and praying with his hands in a cupped position, water appears in his hand, and he gives it to his companion, saving the man's life. The wonder worker's most incredible act, though, to me, didn't take place in the desert. It doesn't take place by the sea. It actually took place in the monastery where he lived. The beneficiary of this miracle was not a man who was dying of thirst or dehydration, but rather a man that was dying of shame and guilt. Tradition tells us that one day a young monk living in Bessarion's monastery had been found guilty of sin. And the whole monastery gathered together with the elders, specifically discussing amongst themselves what was going to happen to this young man. And the room was tense and sorrowful as the monastery leaders began to share their verdict, and it was a sorrowful one. The young man was going to be excommunicated, and he was to leave at once. As he began to walk out, though, something unexpected happened. The great wonder worker, Bessarion, who was held in esteem and respect and sometimes in awe, got up and began to follow the young man out. And as Bessarion caught up to the young man, at this point walking stride in stride with him, the entire council of monks, almost the entire monastery, got up and started to call out, "Father, what are you doing? Where are you going?" To which Bessarion simply replied, "I too am a sinner. I too am a sinner." It's amazing what a moment of kindness and grace can do in someone's life. How it can take the weight of the world on your shoulders and make it feel so much lighter. And how it can take the failures of our lives and the mistakes of our lives and make them into distant memories. That's why Paul in Titus chapter 2 says it's not just grace that saves us, but it's grace that heals, transforms, and trains us to resist sin, to turn away from that which is evil and to embrace that which is good. There's something healing and beautiful that comes from grace. As we continue our sermon series in Ruth, we're going to see how powerful these moments of kindness, grace, and faithfulness can be in one of the most unfaithful and morally corrupt times of Israel's history. Ruth 3 kind of crescendos the story of Ruth, brings it all together by displaying three people who, whether perfectly or imperfectly, are going to lay down their lives for one another. And the result is such an incredible transformation that, multiple times through the course of the week, I have been left in a lot of tears and, moved deeply. And so the crying today is going to be a little out of control, and I'm sorry about that. Deal with it, okay? Because here's the thing, while not explicitly stated in the text through clues related to harvest times and X, Y, and Z, we know that the story in Ruth 3 picks up roughly about 7 weeks after the events of week 2, or the events of chapter 2, I should say. It takes place at the end of the barley harvest. And in a culture and a time where women were extremely vulnerable if they were not directly connected to a man, Naomi, Ruth's mother-in-law, hatches a plot. She has a plan. And what transpires from this moment on, though, is absolutely incredible. In fact, in the next 18 verses, or the next 17 verses, from verse 1 through down through the rest of the chapter, 5 different themes, all related to 5 different words, they all reach a resolution. This one chapter brings together almost every single thing that's happening so far in the book, and it crescendos and climaxes in all of it coming together in this one moment. And while I don't have time to stay here too long, I do need to say to some of us, I need to say to some of you that you need to see this and you need to hear this. You need to hear this beautiful truth that there are those places in your life that feel so left open, that feel so hung in the air. Maybe they're heartbreaks that you've never understood why they happen. Maybe they're aspirations and hopes that you felt, but they never seem to actually come to anything. All those moments that don't feel like they have resolution, but they leave us with that empty feeling that we just can't get rid of. And Ruth, I think in this moment, one of the things that the author of Ruth is trying to communicate to us is that there is a God who knows those moments in your life and sees those moments in your life, that has felt and seen and loved and had compassion for every moment of emptiness and sorrow and discouragement and disappointment. And whether in this life or in eternity, the beauty of what Ruth's author is doing here is that they're telling us he answers. He will answer. Maybe you will see it on this side of the living. Maybe you'll see it on the other side, but he answers. Praise God. Take heart, keep faith, because he answers. Now, that's not even one of the main points, but I got to keep moving. All right, so when it comes to what's going on here, the first of them is rest that actually kind of resolves. And this actually happens in the first words of chapter 3. You can move on from this now, Ian. The first verse says, I must find a home for you. That's what Naomi's desire is. They want to find a home for Ruth. And this Hebrew word literally means a resting place. A resting place. Here's the thing, though. This isn't actually Naomi's first time using this word so far in Ruth. If you remember way back to week 1, Before leaving Bethlehem, Naomi tells both Ruth and Orpah something specific. When telling them to return to Moab, Naomi says this: "May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband." This word rest in Hebrew is actually the same word. It's a resting place. And here's the thing. Many scholars have pointed out that while Naomi likely did care for Orpah and Ruth, her primary reason for ordering them back to Moab was not because she loved them so much, but was likely because in her grief, after losing her husband and after losing her sons, Naomi likely just could not take responsibility for these young women. She couldn't navigate all of life while now being responsible for these two other people. She was too wrecked with grief. And if you remember, actually, at the beginning of chapter 2, it's Ruth's idea and Ruth herself that goes to glean in the fields, not Naomi. Naomi is mourning and tired and probably left a little incapable at the moment. But now, maybe after healing a bit, maybe just moved by Ruth's faithfulness, Naomi takes responsibility for Ruth in a way that she had not done in the beginning of this story. Naomi herself actually is going to be the answer to the prayer that she prayed for Ruth. May you find a resting place. And now here's Naomi saying, I have to find you a resting place. And so Naomi tells Ruth, wash, get fancy, put on your best clothes, and go down to where Boaz is working. And when he's done working, and after he's eaten and is laying down, uncover his feet, and he'll tell you what to do. And Ruth obeys. And we need to pause here. Some of you that know about Ruth know what's coming a little bit, because what happens through this scene is confusing, highly provocative, and I want you to hear me, listen to me. It is like literarily genius. Like it is an actual genius literary move on the part of whoever wrote Ruth. Because as mentioned before, this scene is extraordinarily provocative, not because of what it says, but rather because of what it doesn't say. In Hebrew, it's crafted in such a way that there are so many different possibilities that can come from this. First, in this time and culture, the idea of the setting, the perfume, and the clothing paint the picture of both a prostitute and at the other end, the end of a grieving period. After her husband's death, Ruth would have been wearing traditional clothes of mourning. It's just meant to communicate to the people around her, I'm a widow and I'm in the process of mourning. And here, while the broad language says just enough to maybe make an allusion to an intimate advancement on the part of Ruth, it also makes just enough of an it does just enough to allude to Ruth changing her clothes of mourning, putting on new clothes, and indicating to Boaz, I'm available to marry, and I want you to marry me. For all intents and purposes, it's Ruth proposing to Boaz. But here's the thing, you can't really quite tell which one it is. But after that, the language of uncovering his feet is also very challenging in Hebrew. And again, highly provocative. In Hebrew, again, we can't see it here, but in Hebrew, the language here would have caused a lot of confusion, specifically about how much and what of Boaz was uncovered. Now look at me. You are thinking what I'm saying, okay? Yes, that's what's happening right now. You're absolutely thinking what I'm saying. I don't need to say more because your imagination already went there. You Americans, you dirty Americans. All right, now, here's the thing. Nothing here feels clear, though. Again, you can't tell which one it is. It could be that, but it also could simply be Naomi uncovering feet and a fresh breeze hitting Boaz's feet and waking him up. But you don't know which one it is. Nothing feels clear. Everything feels ambiguous. And look at me real quick. I want you to pay attention to what I'm saying, because if you can start to understand how the Bible works in this way, you'll start to see incredibly beautiful things, because none of this ambiguity is by mistake. It's not sloppy writing. It's not the author being like, I'm kind of feeling a little bit sleepy. I'll just end it right here. All of this actually is meant to create a feeling of tension. The author wants us to question what is God and what is not God. They want us to question whether is what's happening here God at work, or is what's happening here humans at work. And here's the thing, the answer is ultimately going to be yes. Yes, God is at work and humans are at work. And while Naomi crafts a plan that's somewhere in between really wholesome and absolutely wild, God is also at work through these decisions. Friend, I want to encourage you that whether you see him or whether you don't, in your wise decisions and in your unwise decisions, when you show grace and when you desperately need grace, the author of Ruth is trying to tell us God is working. God is working. Never lose hope, never lose faith. Even when it seems like God's goodness and mercy could not possibly overcome you or others' lack of wisdom, you or others' stupidity, or maybe you or others' actual evil thoughts, deeds, and intentions, he is still moving. Whether we intend it to be wise or whether we intend it to be unwise, good or low-key corrupt, God is working and he is redeeming, not because you deserve it, not because I have earned it, but because that's who he is, even when it's not who we are. Regardless of your mistakes, friend, regardless of your slip-ups, regardless of your failures, don't give up. Keep moving toward the Lord. He's working. Whether you've made mistakes or whether you've done it perfectly, pat yourself on the back or slap your leg and like, man, I messed up again. Keep moving toward him. He's at work. I got to move on. Now, we know God's at work in the story because of what happens next. And this is actually leading us into our second kind of thematic resolution that takes place in chapter 3. Ruth does exactly as she's told. Boaz wakes up, startled, finds a woman laying at his feet, and he says, "Who are you?" Ruth tells him, "I'm your servant Ruth." Then she says something incredible. She says, "Spread the corner of your garment over me." You might be like, what's incredible about that? That's fair. The word translated corner of your garment here, though, is literally wing. Spread your wing over me. This isn't the first time this word is used either. In chapter 2, in response to hearing about how good Ruth has been to Naomi, Boaz tells Ruth, it's going to be on the board, "May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Very similar to Naomi's scene, Ruth invites Boaz to be the answer to the prayer that he has prayed for Ruth. Here's the thing, it will not come easy. This act will actually be deeply sacrificial if he chooses to do it. But he has the opportunity to be what he's asking God to provide this young woman. And she's inviting him, be what you're asking for me. Friends, I love you. But I do need to tell you, if you haven't picked this up already, that there are some prayers in your life that you're praying for others. Maybe some prayers that you're praying for yourself. And the answer to that prayer isn't somebody else. The answer to that prayer is going to be you. It's going to be what God wants to work in you. It's going to come from your faithfulness and your obedience. It's going to come from your submission to the ways and the word and the knowledge and the wisdom and the goodness of God. It's going to come in your life or in someone else's life through your own restoration and how God is transforming you. Will it be hard? Yes. Will it require sacrifice? Yes. Will it be scary? Yes. In fact, in Hebrew, right here, again, there's so much happening here, guys. It's impossible to communicate all of it. In Hebrew, Boaz's response to this request involves like 5 different throwaway words. It's almost like he says 5 different times through the course of this section. And it is almost like he is going, oh, bro, I don't, daughter, you're amazing. He's nervous. He's scared. He recognizes the sacrifice and then he commits to doing it. Sometimes, friend, God is calling you to face the challenge and to face the sacrifice and to face the fear. And through facing those things, some of the prayers that you're praying are going to be answered in your life and in others. When I was 23 years old, 23, I started praying every morning at 5 in the morning that Rachel Elizabeth Hawkins would marry a good man. Every morning I would pray through Philippians 1, 3 through 11, And I would pray that she would marry a man who would lead her to Jesus and be kind and provide for her and her family and be humble and be gracious. Every morning for about 9 months, there came a day about 1.5 years later where I realized I was going to be that man. She's now Rachel Elizabeth Guerrero. And here's the thing, friends, I fail at it all the time. I mess up all the time. It's hard to be the man that I envisioned for my wife when I was 23 praying those prayers. It's hard as hell. But every day, I just keep trying. And I ask God to help me, and I ask the Spirit to help me. And I want and long and strive with all of my effort to be that man that I prayed for her and for my children. There are times, friend, God calls you to be the answer to the prayers that you're praying for others. In those moments, I want to encourage you, do not shrink back. Do not take your foot off the gas. Will it be hard? Yes. Will you make mistakes? Yes. You're going to fail? Yes. All those things are going to happen. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that you're going to be like, I'm Superman or Superwoman. And you're going to be like, oh, it's all fixed now. No, it's going to be hard. God is going to work through it, and he's going to work through the ups and the downs, just like we talked about before. Right? He's working through the mistakes and the good moments. But there are times where he's calling you to it. Don't shrink back, friend. Whew, I got to go. All right. So all this happens. Boaz's response is amazing. Right? It's powerful. It's easy to miss, but it's really beautiful. And it's actually the third kind of resolution that comes in this chapter. In verse 10, he tells Ruth, this kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. What's powerful here is that the kindness he's talking about is a word called hesed. We've talked about this word a little bit before. It's this divine covenantal love that is actually regularly associated with Yahweh, with God. And while Ruth is said to have shown hesed to her dead husband in chapter 1, verse 8, here, Ruth's faithfulness, her divine covenantal love, according to Boaz, is even greater. Why? Because if you go back to the beginning of chapter 3, and you take a look at Naomi's suggestion, Naomi's plan, Naomi wants Ruth to find a husband for herself, but she makes absolutely no mention of a redeemer. Naomi wants Ruth to find a husband for Ruth, but she makes absolutely no mention of finding a redeemer for herself. I gotta blow my nose, y'all. I'm so sorry. But when the moment comes, Ruth actually goes out of her way to ask Boaz not to just be her husband, but to fulfill this unique role known as a kinsman redeemer. We'll talk about that more next week. In order to provide for Naomi and herself. She has risked her reputation. She has risked her safety on this night, not so that she alone can be provided for, but so that Naomi can be provided for through her sacrifices. And here's the thing. This leads to, again, another powerful moment in the book, the fourth resolution, where something we've talked about already happens. Boaz looks at Ruth and says, everyone in the city knows that you're a valiant woman, a woman of noble character. We talked about this in week 2 of this sermon series. And it's this word hayil, a word almost always used for men, specifically in the book of Judges, again, during the time period this is happening, used to reference heroes, mighty men. And this word hayil in this moment is applied to Ruth as though, no, through this faithfulness, through this sacrifice, through this boldness, through this courage, the whole city has already known that you are like a heroic woman. I said this a couple of weeks ago, but I want to say it again. As you see all of this happening, there's so much happening in Ruth 3, it's wild. And after this, what I want to encourage you to do is go back and find these little back and forths that are happening in the book, right? But I want you to find them, and I want everyone in here, I want you to see how God is working through these people, and in particular, how he's working through these women. Because for so many years, as long as I've been a Christian, which is more than 15 years, actually it is 15 years, I have constantly heard us work through Ruth in a way that tells men to go and be like Boaz, and then tells women to go and be like Ruth. And so that's what you're supposed to do. You be Boaz, and you be Ruth. And then y'all come together, and it's like, wow. But if I'm being honest, I think that Ruth is more so painting a beautiful big picture of redemption. And there are some of us in here who are men that need to look at Ruth and say, I want to be faithful like this woman. I want to be sacrificial like this woman. I want to be courageous like this woman. And let me be honest, there are some of us in here who are women who need to look at Boaz and say, I want to be righteous like this man. I want to be upstanding like this man. I want to display a faithfulness and a kindness to the world around me like this man. There is not this distinction of who gets to play what role here, but this Ruth and Boaz and Naomi and all these characters are meant to build this beautiful depiction of beauty and kindness and faithfulness that we're all supposed to look at and go, man, I want to embody something here. Maybe all of this here. And I want my life to reflect how God is redeeming a morally corrupt moment in Israel through the sacrificial, courageous actions of these three people at work right now. All right. The chapter ends after Boaz has said, I'm going to do that, or I'm going to find someone to do it. You're a heroic, valiant woman. The chapter ends with Boaz committing again to being the kinsman redeemer, and he invites Ruth to lie here. What's funny, I'm throwing a bunch of little details at you, but I hope you can keep up, listen to it again, because there's so much that you should take and go, God, this is great. Boaz in Hebrew says literally lodge here. It's an intentional word choice that has absolutely no intimate connotations to it whatsoever in their language. It is literally used in order to communicate that Boaz has no intentions physically with this woman on this night whatsoever. He protects Ruth's image, and Boaz sends her back before daybreak. But before he does, he sends Ruth back with a load of barley. And as she returns, Ruth tells Naomi everything that has happened. And she adds here in 3:17, don't go back to your, Boaz says to her, don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. And here we have this final resolution that takes place in chapter 3. Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty. In this last resolution, the same Naomi who in chapter 1 says this, I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. The same Naomi that says this, at the end of chapter 3, the language of Boaz is don't go back to your mother-in-law empty. The same woman who says this is no longer empty. She is now going to be full. She's going to be cared for. And here's what I want to pause here and say, friend, because I think that we've gone through a lot of Bible in the last 25 minutes or so. That's a lot. There's a lot happening here. But I want to pause here because I do think something powerful and beautiful, distinctly powerful and beautiful is happening right here. Despite everything else going on in this chapter, despite all the huge arcs that are getting resolved and the sweeping tales of faithfulness and a little bit of like love and maybe a sprinkle of romance and God working through all these human choices, the end assures us that in the midst of all this sweeping tale and everything going on, that the Lord has not forgotten Naomi. That he has heard, even with all of this going on, every cry of her heart. And he has seen every tear fall from her face. He has seen every moment of sorrow in this woman's life. And he has answered with love and care and affection and healing. I want you to listen to me. And if you need to look at me, look at me. we regularly hear, and rightfully so, talk about what God is doing to redeem and restore the world, and how the cross and the empty tomb is transforming the world around us, and how we want to be a part of it. And that's true. It is overwhelmingly true. I will never walk that back in any way. But I hope I never make it seem, and I hope I never make you think that the cross, as much as it is about the restoration of all the world, isn't equally about God hearing every cry of your heart and seeing every tear that you've cried and every moment of sorrow that you've experienced, and that the cross is anything less than him responding by washing you overwhelmingly with the love and grace and mercy and kindness of God. That his response to every one of your tears and sorrow and sadness and heartache is an overwhelming wave of love and care and compassion and mercy. The cross is God's ultimate declaration of the depths of his love, that he would see you, see all of you, see the parts of your heart, like we mentioned a little bit ago, that are a little questionable, and see the parts that are noble, and see the parts that are brave, and see all of you as you actually are, the parts that you wish you could hide, and the parts that you wish everybody saw. And somehow he can take all of that picture together and say, I love you. I love you so much that I would die for you, that I would do anything it takes in order to pursue you. I love the fact that this song today talked about the fact that there's no mountain he won't climb up, no darkness he won't light up coming after you, because that is the vision of the cross, this God who would overwhelmingly do anything at all necessary in order to go and get you. And that is not his response just to make himself look good. He's God. He already looks good. He don't need your life, your love, your forgiveness in order to look good. The whole point of the cross is so that God enthrones himself as a king of grace and mercy, your king who showers you with grace and mercy and kindness. In so many ways, similar to the characters of Ruth, Jesus answers the call of the Messiah through his own acts. Through Ruth, there is this call, the seeming idea of how these people are stepping up to do what's necessary in order to bring about redemption. And I can't help but see this beautiful parallel and echo in the fact that through the story of Israel and the world, there is this deep need for people to be saved, redeemed, that there is this heartache that exists in the heart of so many of us, and this corruption that we can't ever seem to get over and stop. And yet Jesus himself doesn't look and go, okay, y'all will find somebody eventually. I'm praying for you. But God in Jesus steps into the story so that he himself can be the answer to our very needs. That he himself is the answer to the depths of our heartache, to the depths of our sorrow. He's the one that answers the guilt and the shame. You need an identity? Hear the Lord speaking love and life over you. Do you need to be forgiven? Hear him declaring through Jesus that you are forgiven. Do you need to be renewed? Hear him saying that you are a new creation. He steps into it not just to pray for us, but to be the answer to the prayer that we so desperately need. Each character of Ruth, hear me, friend, each character of Ruth is coming together to make a mosaic. Do y'all know what that is? A mosaic is a bunch of little pieces of glass that come together to make a big picture. And each character in Ruth comes together to make a mosaic. Boaz and Ruth and Naomi, they all come together to create a mosaic of God's people healed, a mosaic of God's people loved. They come together to make this mosaic of God's people cared for and God's people restored and renewed. And the image that mosaic makes is not the image of your perfection, it's the image of Jesus' love. That's the image that it makes over and over and over again. That's why when the New Testament writers pick up who this God is in Jesus, they begin to say he is the image of the invisible God, and that through him all things were created, but that in him all things are going to be made new, and that through him the old and the empty has passed away. Friend, when you read something like Ruth, hear me, I hope that you read a story that encourages you to go, I want to embody one of these characters, and that there's no weird gender lines between it. But I think more than anything, the picture that Ruth is meant to show you is how each of these characters shares the beauty of how you've already been loved, of how you've already been cared for, but how there is a redeemer and a restorer. And our invitation is not just to try to embody Ruth or Boaz or Naomi, but to receive the affection, the care, and even greater that Ruth, Naomi, or Boaz shows us. If that's not where you land here, what's going to happen is you're going to walk out that door. You're going to try to be heroic. Your tank's going to get to empty, and then you're going to stop. And here's the thing, friend. Nobody wants that. Nobody needs that. I don't even think Ruth is looking at you being like, hey, do that. Because what Ruth wants to show you is not just a bunch of people that you should model, but a king that you should receive. And they're showing the king of the world through their own heart, through their own love, through their own forgiveness, through their own sacrifice, through their own bravery. So here's the thing, as we close today, I'm done. As we close today, I want to invite you to interact with that God that sees you and cares for you. That's the main goal of this entire Ruth stuff. It's not so that we can say again, you're brave and go be strong. It's so that we can invite and welcome the king to which Ruth testifies to, who is coming in the person of Jesus. And so what I want to invite you to do is I'm going to pray not just that we would be strong and courageous, I'm going to pray that you would receive the depths of God's love, sacrifice, and care for you. And here's the thing, if you need to do that with somebody, if somebody needs to make that tangible for you, if you need the Naomi, Ruth, Boaz type of person in order to show and display for you the depths of what God's love looks like for you, then I want to be around. I want to invite whoever was around earlier. I think it was, I don't forget who it was. It was Chandler and whoever was there. Look for people around these areas right here. And I want you to go and I want you to just be prayed for. You don't need to offer anything. If all you have to offer is simply looking at someone and saying, please, then that is enough for the overwhelming love and grace and mercy and kindness of God to meet you where you are this morning and to meet you where you are every day after this. That is the king that Ruth depicts, the redeemer that our heart so desperately needs, and he is the one that is here today because of the cross and because of the resurrection. And so to that end, I'm going to pray. And then I want to encourage you through the song to sing, through communion to fellowship and to be grateful for him, and then through prayer to fellowship with him, to connect with him, and to experience this king who has come to make new. I'm done. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much. Thank you that on the surface, all of this looks so magically like so many things resolving. And it's an incredible piece of text. There's no simple ideas here. There's actually an incredible landscape of tension and resolution and heartache and joy and sorrow and fear and hope. And yet all of this is not just meant to make us feel good, but it's meant to testify to you. It's meant to testify to the work that bound up in all of our hearts and all of our experiences are the fears and the sorrows and the guilt and the mistakes and the shame that come through the reality of everyday life. And yet, as we see and are encouraged and moved by Ruth and Boaz and Naomi, we are meant to not just see them as people to aspire to, but to see them testify to the King who's come to intersect and resolve and to bring life and to bring renewal to those very parts of our heart that desperately need it. And so my King, my God, my friend, my brother, meet us here. Meet us this week. Meet us in the cars, at the workplaces, wherever it may be. Not to do the work of just motivation, but to do the work of renewal, restoration, and redemption that only your love, kindness, and mercy bring. I love you. We love you. And I pray these things in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.